Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross and the Sun's football editor Charlie Wyatt. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run everyone through the back pages, starting with John's paper, The Mirror. Rant, Cam vows to live up to nightmare. Tag, that's Cam Norrie. And rave, Pedro says Club Cup means the world to Chelsea. As for the back of the Sun, the spy blue loved me. Thiago snoops on old pals. Cunha starts for United. Back of the Eye says Sinner's great escape. Italian into quarter-finals after Dimitrov retires hurt while leading. And United frustrated by Brentford's high Mbeumo valuation. Front of the Telegraph. Tearful exit. Sinner consoles injured Dimitrov. That's a Wimbledon story. And Farrell shows his hand. Lions test now starting to take shape. But let's start with the back page of The Mirror, which is John's paper, of course, and João Pedro saying the Club World Cup means the world to Chelsea. John, this is your story. You spoke to him today. It's a nice story, first of all, isn't it? I mean, given that he was on the beach, it says, and now he's in a semi-final.
Absolutely. I do like João Pedro, both as a player and as a personality, actually. I love it when a player's got a bit of something about him, a bit of sort of kind of swagger, a bit of confidence, maybe a touch of arrogance in there. And Pedro spoke really, really well. We went and saw him actually at the training ground that Chelsea are using as part of the City group. But it's about an hour outside of New York Central, and basically, you know, he sort of kind of spoke to us, a few of us at the training ground, at various things, really, saying just how much the Club World Cup means to him. Yeah, you know, just over a week ago, this guy was on a beach in Rio. I mean, it looks really great there. I think this sort of kind of the guys back home have done an absolute super job on that spread. It looks great, actually. Alan McKinley and the boys back in the office, absolutely fantastic. And they've done me proud as ever. And just how much it means, really. He said that he even took a personal trainer on holiday with him because he basically got the vibe that Chelsea, there was an interest in him, and so wanted to stay fit, wanted to stay sharp, because at any moment he got the call, and he duly did, and needed to jump on a flight and got to get to the United States. I mean, this is a bizarre one, really, isn't it? That basically a player can sign in the Club World Cup between group and knockout, and then play. He came on the other day as a substitute, made a big difference for Chelsea, gave them, I think, a bit of a turbo boost to get her over the line and into this semi-final. With Delap suspended, I do think there's a big possibility that Pedro might well start. And this is a player that I really like. As I say, I like his confidence, I like his attitude. He's got something to say, he doesn't lack belief. And as a striker, I think you need that. I thought he spoke really well today. Yeah.
And John, we know you've got your personal trainer out there as well, of course. Charlie, just in terms of this Club World Cup, I mean, it's had its critics, hasn't it? And Chelsea, I mean, Enzo Maresca's remarks on the time of year it's being played and the conditions it's being played in. But now we're at the business end. We're in the semi-finals. There seems a bit more of a love-in.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Even over here, I mean, obviously, you know, John's far better placed to give us sort of an indicator of what it's like over there. But I think here it was always going to be a slow burner. I think the real football fans have been watching still a lot, well, pretty much all the games, because it's given them a bit of a football fix, hasn't it? But certainly now, yeah, definitely increased interest. It's going to be really interesting. And yeah, let's not forget that, you know, these players all want to win. And while there might be some critics still saying, well, no one cares, these players will be desperate to get a medal, will be desperate to you know, be Club World Cup winners. It'll be hugely important for them. And there won't be, you know, again, John's been speaking to these players. I'm pretty sure they've all been taking it really seriously, because you know, it's all about pride. It's all about success. That's what they're in. Yeah, that's what they're playing the game for. So you know, while it's come at an awkward time, and I'm sure particularly Chelsea are facing a really tough start to the Premier League season. There's absolutely no doubt about that now. At the moment, they're enjoying the run, and I'm pretty sure those in charge of the Chelsea finances are sort of pretty happy at the moment as well, because they're just making millions and millions of pounds due to this run.
Yeah, and they'll be even happier if they end up winning it. Charlie, I'm going to stay with you on this because it's your paper, The Sun, and your colleague Andrew Dillon. The Spy Blue loved me. This, of course, Thiago Silva, who's now at Fluminense and, of course, very popular player at Chelsea, of fairly recent vintage. I mean, he's knocking on a bit now. Still looks in great nick in that picture. But it's always intriguing, isn't it, when these players go back and play against their former clubs. And he will have a lot of insight on the Chelsea players, albeit there's been a bit of squad change since he left.
Yeah, it's obviously, an incredibly popular player amongst Chelsea fans still. They sing his name. He obviously enjoyed the Champions League success with them and the Club World Cup in the shorter format as well. He's not just going to return to face Chelsea. He's been returning to the training ground. I think he's been there a couple of times in the last few months. He's still got a house in London. And I think the key here, two of his sons are at Chelsea's academy. There is a real close link, and he might not know Maresca particularly well, but as I think he said in the interview, he speaks to Chelsea's, the players that were around a few years ago. He speaks to them on a weekly basis. So it's certainly a match he's going to be looking forward to, and adds an extra bit of spice. And I'm sure Chelsea fans will absolutely love seeing him feature against them as well.
OK, this time of year is not just about the Club World Cup, it's all about transfers, of course. The back of the eye, John, talks about United being frustrated by Brentford's high Mbeumo valuation. Obviously, they've signed Cunha. We get on to him in a bit. But, Mbeumo, they need to add a few more in the forward positions, don't they, and a bit of quality. But this one looks far from done at the moment.
Yeah, Mark Douglas there, I think, going as far as to sort of say that basically that the deal has stalled, which would be quite a worry for Man United fans. I have to say on this one, United frustrated by Brentford's high valuation. Well, he was a fantastic player for Brentford last season, absolutely brilliant, and basically goals, assists, his output. The notion that somehow Brentford will roll over and give him a cheap price. Well, if they don't like the price, you know what they can do? They can walk away from it. That's what they can do. They don't have to pay it because Brentford don't absolutely have to sell. Brentford, extremely well-run club. They're in no absolute emergency state that they have to sell. I think they're expecting to sell him, and probably expecting someone to come in with a fair price. And I think actually, because in there they're sort of saying 55 million. Is perhaps what United are thinking, 55 million plus add-ons. Well, I have to say, if they get Bryan Mbeumo for that, I think they're getting themselves a bargain. So no wonder Brentford are driving a hard bargain. I actually think that, sorry, United, but if you don't think you can pay that, I mean, I guess United's issue is that they've signed Cunha, they're after Mbeumo, and they still need a centre forward. So bearing in mind they've got kind of PSR juggling to do, and they need a lot of outgoings to manage as well. I think they will have to manage their finances very carefully, and that's more the point, isn't it? It's not about Brentford driving a hard bargain. It's about United needing to do their sums, and that's why the sticking point is. So decent story, and if indeed the deal is stalled, then that's a worry for United. But I have to say, there's no reason why Brentford would lower their price just to hand him to United. Absolutely no chance. Yeah,
and Charlie, I guess there's always that Man United tax, isn't there? They've got a history, recent history suggests they tend to pay over the odds for these players. They are, if not desperate, then they really do need some changes in those forward positions. Brentford know that, but it's a fair point about the outgoings. What comes first? Do they get Mbeumo and then offload? And then they're going to face the same problem the other way round.
Yeah, I think they'll get Mbeumo still and then offload. And there's a fair amount of offloading to do, isn't there? 4 or 5 players, big name players that are not going to be involved over the next few days and weeks, and we know all about them. But look, Mbeumo is desperate to join Manchester United. I think he's making that quite clear. So I'm sure it will happen. But as John said, it'd be ludicrous to expect Brentford to expect anything other than top dollar for a top player who was outstanding last year and without doubt will add to the United team compared to previous seasons when they've taken slight gambles by bringing in the likes of Højlund and Xerxes from Italy. Mbeumo will hit the ground running. He'll make an instant impact for them. And that's why Man United are going to have to pay a bit more. They know it. I'm sure they expected it. So I'm surprised it's stalled. I'm sure it will happen. And after that, before they can think of signing any more players, they've got to start getting rid of some.
Yeah, and Crossy, I mean, Charlie makes a fair point about the Mbeumo coming from the Premier League, being proven in the league. Another man who is very much proven in the league is Matheus Cunha, and the back of the Sun. Cunha starts for United. Nice picture of him carrying his boots into the training ground and everything. He'll want to hit the ground running, but he is a proven Premier League player, unlike some of those signings that Charlie just mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that Cunha, it's a nice story here. A few papers have got it on the back, really, that Cunha basically turned up and was kind of first through the door, really, at United for sort of kind of pre-season training, couldn't wait to get started. And I love that enthusiasm about it. Listen, let's not kid ourselves. United still has that pull. It basically it's a huge football club, and a lot of players want to play for it. I mean, that's why Cunha's keen, sort of Mbeumo's keen. That's why Cunha there with his boots in hand couldn't wait to get through the door. You know, and they've sold the vision there. They've sold the dream of the club, basically, and he could be part of it to revolutionise the club. And I do think that there is something about signing just players that, you know, are proven and Premier League ready, if you like. And can slot straight in and make an impact straight away. There's so many players that take a bit of time to settle, who haven't had a sort of kind of experience of English football or indeed the Premier League. And I do think that United are clearly angling for players that do have Premier League experience to bring, particularly to their forward line. And I think that just means they had so many problems last season, United, and they were so inconsistent that I think Amorim wants a completely clean slate, a bit of a fresh start, a fresh forward line. And I do think if he's going to do that, he cannot lose about 3 months while players take their time to adjust to English football. And I think that's the key for me. I still think that Amorim, particularly, I like some of the business that he's aiming to do, and then obviously players are going to go out. But I think that actually if they end up with, you know, a good centre forward and those two wide players, Cunha and Mbeumo, I think that's got the ingredients of quite an exciting sort of kind of front three. And also it's potentially got, you know, if they get the right striker, then also it's got potentially oven ready, if you like, as someone once said, about sort of kind of Premier League proven ability.
Yeah, I mean, that, of course, Charlie, at the moment is still an if, as we said with Mbeumo. They've still got to get the striker over the line, whoever that may be. Gyökeres being very strongly linked, of course, to Arsenal. And I'm just looking at the signings that Arsenal have made. Chelsea have obviously been very busy. Manchester City have done early business, as of Liverpool. Is there a danger that Manchester United, one, could get left behind by those clubs if they haven't already been left behind? And how conscious would Amorim be of what other clubs are doing when he hasn't really been able to get much done yet?
He'd be conscious of that, and it'd be really frustrated as well. But equally, he wouldn't have been surprised, because United know the situation they're in, and you know the players they've got, to get rid of. Big, you know, high-earning players, you know, players that will take some shifting. There's some good ones there, but of course, you know, the likes of Marcus Rashford. Yeah, he might have his heart set on Barcelona, but you know, I think Bayern Munich have got him at sort of, you know, 5th on their list. But these are not simple transfers to do. It's a lot easier getting Mbeumo out of Brentford to Man United, of course. So yeah, that should have happened quite quickly, and I'm sure it probably will do. But United know they've got some hard work ahead of them, and Amorim would have known that, to be honest.
OK, gentlemen, great stuff. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning papers, including this in the Times. Sinner through after Dimitrov suffers injury. You're watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross and the Sun's football editor Charlie Wyatt. Let's start with the back of the Times. Sinner through after Dimitrov suffers injury. Charlie, I know you love your tennis. I mean, this is a really sad story, isn't it? The 34-year-old Bulgarian Dimitrov, 2 sets to love up against the world number 1 Yannick Sinner, and then looked like he'd done something to his pec or his shoulder, and he's had to retire. Visibly upset, went off in tears. And yeah, pretty heartbreaking for the fella.
It's a sad story because he was playing brilliantly, and it was, potentially going to be, the the match of the tournament so far. It was, Sinner had no answer against it, and Sinner was having, injury problems as well. But I feel really sorry for Dimitrov. I remember, when I was covering tennis, I mean, he was boys champion in 2008, and then he was sort of dubbed Baby Fed because he had quite a similar game to Roger Federer. And he's just, particularly at the end of his career, he's just had so many injuries. I think it's 12 matches he's pulled out of, during a match with injury. I think the French Open and the Aussie Open this year, he's had to retire with injury as well. So to play so well like he was today against such a top player who had no answer to him, and then suffer this injury, you can see why, as you said, he left in tears. And, whether we see him back at Wimbledon again, I'm not so sure. Sinner's got really, really lucky here.
Yeah, and that's
because he knows he was on his way out.
Yeah, and that's echoed in the Telegraph. John, the Sinner's lucky escape. And I guess sometimes if you're going to win a tournament like Wimbledon, you do need your luck along the way, don't you? It might be that, you just a lucky line call or something like this happens. He's world number one, Sinner. He hasn't won Wimbledon, and this could be the break he needs.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's been an eventful time for him, hasn't it? It's been an eventful year. And frankly, I mean, blimey, I'm sure we all watched the sort of the slam just before Wimbledon, and sort of kind of that absolute classic with Alcaraz. And it was, I mean, honestly, at the French, and it was just amazing, really. Obviously, he's had controversy this year. And been playing very well, and then sort of had some highs and some lows. Really, I don't know that he's ever going to be the kind of the darling of centre court, let alone any main court. Really, after everything about sort of kind of the ban that he's served. But it's just I do think he is a formidable opponent if he can find his game. And as Charlie was rightly saying, that basically it certainly wasn't the case. Today, then I think he's going to be a formidable opponent for anyone sort of kind of later in the championship. It is shaping up quite nicely, I think, actually, despite losing obviously quite a few early big seeds throughout, but sort of kind of both in the men's and the women's. I do actually think we're sort of kind of shaping up quite nicely for this sort of kind of the latter stages lineup. And we could sort of kind of still have an absolute classic final. I think we are sort of shaping up nicely. I do think it's been a really outstanding tournament. I think we've seen great levels of play, and I also think we've seen some terrific matches and drama and great stories and great controversy.
Yeah, talking of great stories and great controversy, Norrie against Alcaraz next up for Cam Norrie. The back of the Express, Nightmare Norrie, Charlie, aims to frighten Alcaraz, and I'm not quite sure he's going to frighten him, but he has annoyed one or two along the way. He's pretty unapologetic, and it seems like it's nothing too serious, over exuberance, lots of kind of vocal and shouting and fist pumping. This is a guy who wants to win, and it'll be interesting how the crowd kind of split. Britain's Norrie versus the man going for the three-peat.
Yeah, I think most of them will be cheering on Norrie, that's for sure, and the crowd won't mind, some of his shouting and his vamos, and obviously in his previous match he was winding up his opponent by his ball bouncing, between serves, but it really wasn't that bad. It was nothing like Nadal and Djokovic have done in the past, which was they'd bounce the ball 55 times. I think Norrie was doing it 20 times, so it was nothing really. But yeah, I think it potentially could be a cracking match. Obviously, Alcaraz you'd make favourite, but I think Norrie's won 2 of the 3, so that would give him a little bit of a boost. But nevertheless, obviously, an incredibly difficult match against, at the moment, by far and away the best men's player in the world.
Yeah, John, you mentioned that French final where Alcaraz was unbelievable. What a game of tennis that was. Up against the last Brit, it's going to be some atmosphere on centre court.
It really will be. And I love the way that Norrie talks about this, sort of in the papers and saying, look, it's not, he's really putting his case out there, and the way that he hypes himself. He says it's all about self-motivation. my colleague Neil McClellan in the Mirror. I know we're all biased about our colleagues and so on, but Neil's a super writer, brilliant tennis correspondent, and really kind of does not just a sort of about page piece, but also something inside, just detailing sort of kind of Norrie, the sort of the chilled out guy, but basically with a real determination on court, sort of kind of trips on holiday with I think you see now Crows in Ibiza, and basically just some nice colour about the guy, really, because I do think we love getting behind his sort of kind of British number 3 right now, and sort of kind of slightly down sort of kind of world rankings. But, I actually think when you're on there, and he will be pumped, and this is how he'll pump himself up, by kind of getting hyped up, and he'll feed into the energy of the crowd and basically, say just how much it means. I think that could be quite an intimidating thing, but I think you're absolutely right, Dave. It's sort of Alcaraz at the moment. Okay. He's just on a different plane. Terrific player, great to watch.
Yeah, he's brilliant, isn't he? Back of the mail, Charlie. Still on the tennis. Henman slams British losers for gripes about Hawkeye calls. This is Jack Draper and Emma Raducanu, who just queried the electronic line calling. No line judges, of course, this year. One or two players, not just the Brits, have had a bit of a moan about the accuracy. Tim Henman's calling their gripes utter garbage. What do you make of that?
Yeah, good stuff here from Tim. Obviously, this should not be confused with the match where they had it sort of Hawkeye switched off, which was human error. Yeah, this is just whinging players, and Raducanu and Draper should know better. Obviously, it's becoming a bit of a theme. A couple of players have complained that they're not 100% sure, and now I think some of the players are using it as an excuse. Tim Henman having absolutely none of it, quite rightly, and let's hope a few other players read his comments and actually just look at the replays. And the All England club and all the other slams, they've repeatedly looked at this technology, and they're absolutely insistent that it's 100%. And I think there's just a case of some bad losers, I think.
OK, let's move on to a bit more football. The Women's Euros, of course, well and truly underway. The Lionesses didn't go their way against France. They weren't at their best. Serena Wiegmann's team, John. Back of the Guardian, proper England. Stanway urges Lionesses to go back to roots for crunch clash. I think she likened the France game to a bad night out. You've just got to kind of move on, have another one, have another night out. And, it's a must-win game, really, against the Netherlands.
I'll tell you what, this is an absolute lesson in how to change the mood with a kind of good press interview. Georgia Stanway, an absolute sort of kind of real lesson in doing that. Really good rabble-rousing stuff. Just saying that basically she, got us laughing, didn't she, with that bad night out line. But then also saying we need to get back to being proper England, kind of really into them, sort of high intensity, a bit more physical, a bit more direct perhaps, and kind of finding their sort of form. I mean, they really need to find it, by the way, because, they can easily be out. If they lose to Holland, and then basically, kind of if France, basically get the right result, then it's goodbye for England.
It's goodbye for England, John, and unfortunately, it's goodbye from us, because we have run out. We have run out of time. But Charlie and John, thanks as always for your company. Always good fun. And if you've missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour, and the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us again on Tuesday night when our guests will be Miguel Delaney and David Ornstein.